let people start coming in. All right. We'll go another 5 minutes or so. People keep coming in. Of 6 of us who are here, who's this the first time going to Python? Okay, perfect. So since we started doing this in February and March, we stopped doing regular talks because giant talks of just one person talking to this number of people, not necessarily great. So instead, what we typically do is choose a library or find something online that we all can work on together. Everyone takes turns coming up to the computer and being the person at the keyboard. And we all try to program something as a group called mob programming. And for this particular one, we're going to look at a library called Hug. We've done one. We did a 2-part series in the past with Flask, which was a lot of fun. Mix of SQL alchemy for database backend and Flask for HTTP routing. And this is similar, but it has a lot more packed into it. So we'll give it just a little bit longer for people to start kind of get into the live stream and anyone else who's going to come back in. But if you haven't already done so, install Hug. Computers, have your computer, install Hug. We're going to be using Python 3. Really not, unless you're doing legacy code, you really shouldn't be using Python 2 anymore. But one of the nice things about Hug is that it really makes use of Python 3 specific features for actual features of the application. So if pip does not install Python 3 libraries, you'll want to use pip 3 to make sure that it does it. Sometimes I think on the default Mac as of last year's Python 3, so I think just using pip with Python 3, but other machines, you might want to type in Python just by itself and see if it comes up 2.7 or 3 point blank. I think for the Hug it needs to be minimum 3.3. I'm not sure how far back function annotations go, but 3.4 will be fine. 3.5, 3.6 is nice. Yeah, documentation. I think it's hug.rest, hug.rest is the documentation. They have a lovely animated GIF on the main page showing awesome features in the code. It looks very much like Flask. It makes good use of decorators for both routing, CLI, and external functions. So, we'll dig into that a little bit more.
All right, I think we'll get started then. I don't have any opening slides this time around. I typically will put in something from machine learning and data science, and there are some really interesting libraries, but nothing really Python specific. I went to PyCon this year. That was a lot of fun. I highly recommend going out or going to their website. They post all of the PyCon talks on YouTube, so even if you don't go out, I highly recommend watching the keynotes. They had a really good one where engineers from Instagram talked about how they migrated from Python to Python 3.5 and eventually 3.6 without any downtime and with a single master branch. I think that was a really good one. They had a they had a panel discussion with Guido, Benevolent Dictator for Life, and a couple of other people who were there at the first PyCon. Some really fun things. A lot of data science specific ones, and then just a lot of other ones. Intro to Python, intermediate Python kind of talks. So definitely check those out. And I can feature some libraries that I found in future meetups, but just jumping right into it, Hug is a interesting library. I'll go ahead and pull it up on here, hug.rest. I'll make it a little bigger, but Hug is a really interesting wrapper around Falcon. Falcon is, so Python, heard of Flask, heard of Django model. These Django with the batteries all included, Flask and Bottle are more micro frameworks. Falcon is a super micro framework that is incredibly fast, that's designed to build REST APIs. I've used one for a large-scale project before, and it was really easy to implement. Ran really quickly. Hug is built on top of that. It adds a more Flask-like interface and a lot of advanced features on top of it. And one of the neat things is it uses Python 3 annotations to provide functionality, as opposed to just making things readable for developers, which is really mostly what function annotations are doing right now. If you're not familiar with function annotations, if you're not familiar with Python 3, get into Python 3. Let me see if no function annotations just yet. Automatic documentation should be in here. There we go. So function annotations are, for the live stream, function annotations are these bits of code that come right after the your function parameters. And typically, what they have it right now, they are completely ignored at runtime by the language. Unless you're using a library that actually utilizes them, they get sent into either a single or a dunder annotations dictionary, parameter dictionary. But at runtime, they're really just ignored. I highly recommend people use them because it helps readability. You don't have to call your variable names lists of strings anymore. You can just call it a list, and the function annotation have square braces with str inside of it. So this people can say this function is designed to take in a list of strings, and you can. Or instead of just giving it a raw type like that, you can just have a string that says takes a list of strings. And it's presented to the developer. IDEs are starting to use it. PyCharm does a really good job of it. But unless you specifically have your code look at the annotation, this is completely ignored. I can, if I just import a function that says I take a string, I can still pass none to it. The language doesn't check anything. There's a library called MyPy, which Guido is actually working on that adds type checking via function annotations. But for now, there's mostly just ignored, which is why I wanted to bring this library up, because I love showing off libraries like Hug and Begins that use function annotations to as actual functionality. So in here we have a function, Happy Birthday, that takes in name and age, and they implement their own types, and we'll see why they do it later. But it says that name, it's going to validate our data to say name has to be text or string type, and age has to be number, so we can either take in an int, float, to double, any numerical value, and it will validate the data, but it also is using that to provide documentation. So if, in this case, we have @hug.get, and that's providing HTTP routing in this application. And if we were to pass in a parameter, if we said name equals true, well, actually I think text is probably not the best thing. Let's say we gave age equals true, then it would actually respond. Instead of running our function here, it would say error, type mismatch, age should be a number. And it does that automatically without us having to do anything. We get that functionality just because we added a function annotation. And we'll play around with it. This library is really small, it's really cool, and I just wanted to kind of show off some fun stuff here. Now, the fun, the interactive part is if you haven't already done so, go ahead and open up a terminal window, and if Python is, type in Python, you get Python 3, I have 3.6 on here. Then all you need to do is pip install Hug. And barring any network kind of stuff, there we go. And checking everything, da-da-da-da-da. Yep. So that's a lot, but that's its dependency list right there. But once Hug is installed, we can go ahead and start playing around with it. So actually, let me do desktop. Just open that up. So, let's go back here. Just starting back up at the top. We can either follow along with this code here, or do you guys want to go into a tutorial and just start with that? Quick start. So, going over Hug, pip. Local installation of Python 3.3 and above, I'm pretty sure that has to do with the annotations. Welcome. So again, pip install Hug. Get it on there as long as pip leaves Python 3. So I'll go ahead and start us off in the code. Have the documentation open because just getting this up and running. Typically what we'll do with mob programming is we will say, let's implement a feature, make sure that feature runs, and then switch who's at the computer. And just so you're aware, when you come up to the computer, your face is on the live stream. So, okay, so first Hug API, and this is our happy birthday thing again. So actually, let's just grab that. Yes. So, hey, while you're sitting down, for mob programming, don't feel like you have to keep up with everything that's going on the stream. When we're done, we're going to push this code up to GitHub so that everyone can get access to it later. But the goal is to get something running on this computer right now that we all contribute to. Yeah. So let me make that bigger. Yeah.
Which IDE you use?
Oh, this is VS Code. It shouldn't matter what IDE or text editor you're using. Let's see.
So I had to install Hug into a virtual environment.
So, yeah, let's go back here. So, what we're doing here is local. What this allows us to do is it provides a wrapper around all the basic functionality so that we can import this happy birthday function into any other Python code that we have. So that, all right. So we save the file. We can open up. We can open up Python thing, and let's say we're going to from main import happy birthday. Then try happy birthday. The first thing, name takes text, so Alice is, let's say, 20, and returns a message and how long it took. Okay. So we haven't really gotten any functionality out of Hug yet. But what's fun is we can try to break it. So how might we break the example function here?
Pass the wrong type.
So what might we pass in this case? Maybe if we give none to something that's looking for a number and returns an error. So invalid whole number provided. We can also say, hey, the first one is looking for text, name of 1, and it will, yeah, so there's the age. We give it 2 wrong ones, and if we switch it back here, ooh, interesting. It will select anything as text. What about none? There we go. It can accept integers as none, or integers as text. Interesting. So that's it for something very basic, like just a local function. Rather than just dealing with the library tutorial directly, what is some kind of application that we want to write? When we did the Flask one, we just created something that we were able to read and add Pokemons into a database. So what if who thinks of, are taking ideas, or who is familiar with fizzbuzz as just a very basic concept programming exercise? You want to come up and yeah. So with everyone looking at the documentation and helping along, we're going to keep import hug, but we're going to have dev fizzbuzz. And first thing we're going to do is get a basic fizzbuzz running, and then we'll figure out how to integrate into hug.
So if I remember correctly, it's if it's divisible by 3, you print out fizz. If it's divisible by something else, you print out buzz. If it's divisible by both, it's fizzbuzz.
So fizzbuzz is, honestly, numbers are arbitrary, but the typical usage is fizz if divided by 3, and buzz if divided by 5. If it's divisible by both, you return fizzbuzz, and if it's divisible by none, you return the number.
Okay, gotcha. So the number is divisible. Sorry, repeat. If it's divisible by 3, return fizz. And this number is divisible by 5. Return buzz. I'm doing this wrong, I think, but if it's divisible, so if it's divisible by 1, it's fizz. If it's divisible by the other, it's buzz. But if it's both, you have to do fizz buzz, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Actually, yeah, I'm doing this wrong.
Always a good exercise.
Yeah. It's a command. So
What if we say s equals empty string, and then if number is divisible by 3, s plus equals if number is divisible by 5, s plus equals buzz, and then so rather than perfect.
Does that work in Python?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just get rid of the L in front of the if there.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And there are all sorts of convoluted ways that you can one-line this, but that's very effective. One more space in front of that has.
Oh. Oh.
Well, Python will complain. So then something fancy that we can do for our return statement is you can do return s or number. And and the fun thing here, I think we need one less space in front of the return.
A 1 less.
So like it's indented 5 spaces right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So fun thing about the OR is if s is not an empty string, it will return s, and if it is, it will just return the number.
Okay.
So there's a basic fizzbuzz.
I have an error here.
All sorts of. I think just save it and linter only runs when it's saved.
Okay.
And then that's just complaining about no empty line at the end, but it doesn't really matter. So let's see if this works. We can, I think it's Control tilde on the keyboard to bring up a command prompt. Yeah.
I think we actually need to quit out of this one. Control C. It's yeah, there you go. And then just up arrow and enter. Because if we were to say from main import fizzbuzz, it would say there is no fizzbuzz because it's already imported the app, imported that file before we changed it.
Okay.
So now we can do from main import fizzbuzz. Right now we don't need the hug up there. I think it's complaining because we don't have a
that type
like
number.
a hug.local or hug.api. So
Gotcha.
we can switch hug.type.number to int or float or really it would be an int. Well, just get rid of hug.type.
Michael, sorry to interrupt, but what's the Wi-Fi password?
Oh, yeah, so it's CLI guess, and it's Cape Canaveral, capital C, capital C.
One more time.
Cape Canaveral, yeah, so capital C's
Sorry
on
about
it
that.
and no space in between. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine.
One more time. TY what?
It's CLI guess.
I am.
Cape Canaveral? No space.
That doesn't seem correct.
That doesn't seem correct.
Yeah. Is this not the modulo?
So we need to do if not number because if let's say we pass in 15, number mod 3 is 0, which
Yeah.
is interpreted as false. So
Okay.
just add not between if and number on those two.
Okay. Not.
Between the if.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Alternatively, we do if number mod 3 equals 0, but this is more Pythonic.
Gotcha.
So now quit. Yeah, quit this again. Launch it again. All of that. The up arrow will also work. Here.
Oh.
Yep. So now if we run fizzbuzz again. Fizzbuzz. Give it some other number. 7. Alright.
Sweet.
So we have fizzbuzz. Now let's hugify it. We have hug imported, and from our example earlier, we used a function decorator. Let's do hug.local or
Oh.
just again. We ran the local one before.
Okay.
But then we'll go ahead and add a CLI and an API, REST API to this. Same function, not yet. But
No. Okay.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that it works like our Hello Birth, our Happy Birthday one before. So we get hug.local. Now we have the hug.types.
So now I can,
Yep.
put that here.
Yep.
Okay.
If we don't use just for the local function, if we don't give it the type annotation,
Mhm.
then we're not really getting much benefit out of hug.
Gotcha.
Hug the types that number. I think, yeah, that should be fine. So from main import fizzbuzz, we don't have to re-quit it.
Okay.
It didn't execute yet.
Gotcha.
And let's try our fizzbuzz again with any
16. We get fizzbuzz. Now let's try giving it something that is not a number. We get automatic data validation. And this is just for any functions that we write to be used internally within any of our other applications. So say you are trying to get an internal library finished and you're going to hand it off to another team within your company, or you're working on an open source project and you having something like this used in the first place and using function annotations, it makes your code itself more readable, but with Hugging here, just using local, it also means that if it's doing data validation for any other developers that want to integrate your library or your functions into their own code. So that's really cool. All right, let's have someone else go up to the keyboard. Gonna do eeny, meeny, miny, moe. And for go on up.
I'm having issues with the pip installs.
I'll take. If you don't, if you're okay with it, I can take care of it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
The keyboard.
This is, I just gotta say,
Oh, okay.
so,
Let me figure that out.
All right. So now we have it in a local. Let's the next one. Let's make it work with a CLI. So if you want, I don't know which direction you need to swipe on the touchpad there, but the documentation page is on one of them. It's a 4-finger swipe,
Oh.
left and right.
Damn, my bad. My bad.
There we go. Now do that the other direction. There.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is our quick start for local. We can scroll down the page. The next one should. Oh no, let's actually do. Let's do our REST API next.
REST API.
Or okay, let's do command line. So all we need to do with the command line here, which is pretty fun, is add CLI. This also adding a main file to the bottom. So we're using the function annotations for data validation, and actually we can, if you undo that, we can stack. We can stack them on top of each other. Decorators in Python will stack, and that means by attaching them like that, fizzbuzz will be available to be imported by other Python applications, but also available as a command line interface. The other thing that we have to do is do our if name equals main code at the bottom of our file. And that was, I saw that on the quick start there.
Oh, if name. So I would put this under, or just delete that whole if.
Yeah, click enter a couple times and get us further down. So we get, and then backspace once to get us out of our function.
Okay.
And then we just add our if name equals main here. If you're not familiar with if name equals main, what that first line does, our if statement, is this code will only run if our main.py file is the root of the program that we're running. So that line won't be run if it's being imported by another file. And typically we'll do def main, and we'll create a main function, and then put it, and then just have it main brackets run, and it will run. But that doing this, as opposed to just saying happy birthday interface CLI, means that you can then import any functions from this library, not worrying about having your, okay, I'm going to start up my code running. So I think that should be all we need for CLI.
Yeah.
Catherine was on the other side of this. CLI rep, see what it says on here.
Scroll down.
So I think here all we do is hug. So when we pip install hug, we get hug as a command shortcut. So in our terminal on the bottom of the screen there, we can put out a Python.
Control C.
Quit function.
Yeah.
So now do it. All right. So you should. So the first thing we need to do is hug, and then we give it a file prepended with -f, I think I saw. Yeah. So hug.
So hug. Okay, F first start right here.
Yeah, for us it would be hug -f main.py.
What was that again? Hyphen F dot space. I'm lost. Main. Yay, nay, good.
Yep, so there's.
Sweet.
So now, if I recall correctly, I think if we click the plus sign next to our Python 3.6 up top there, I think we just do hug. Hug happy birthday. No, happy birthday. Oh, okay, so this is the fun of copying and pasting things. In our, can anyone else spot what's going on here?
Yeah. Indeed.
So our happy birthday, we don't have a happy birthday function.
So put it.
We have fizzbuzz function.
Oh, so I have to define it. So
let's replace happy birthday with fizzbuzz.
okay. And then run it again. Hug.
We need to go back into our first terminal, so yeah, clicking there should try to do this. And then Control C this one. I think we just keep running again.
I'm lost for words.
Okay? This is why we're all here. I'm saying. Whoever finds it first gets to yell it out and have the glory.
Mm. Any takers, givers? I have no idea what I'm looking at. Huh?
Oh, okay, so their GIF is going a little crazy, but if we go, you see how in their GIF it does in order to actually run the function from it, it has hug -f, or we would have main.py, and then it has -c. So -c is where we're pulling out the exact function name that we want to run, and then we start passing parameters.
So the hyphen.
-c and then fizzbuzz. And give it a number. Hey, there we go. Following arguments are required.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's working. And then we just had our first data validation. Hey, you're missing something. You should really have something here. So, 5 should be buzz. Yay!
Oh, okay.
If we have some time, I can pull up a different library called Python Fire. It allows you to turn any Python object, class, or function into a command line interface. One of the Google guys at Python showed.
Sweet.
All right, so we have a CLI for our function now. Yeah, cool. Let's add a REST API. Let's add a GET to it. So who wants to go up next? And I will start pointing at people. Okay. I'll go up. All right. It's just if this is your only one, it would work, but you would have to do file save as code only as a separate file. Jupyter is great for a lot of things. Yeah, it's not command line. Yeah.
All right, so we're going for the
So,
setting it up as a web server now.
Well, the API endpoint was before the CLI, so when you scroll back up to it.
Okay.
This section right here.
Okay, awesome. Oh, gotcha.
And here, so exposing our API as an HTTP microservice. Really just exposing it as a REST API. And instead of doing .local, .cli, we just use .get, .post, .put, .delete, and any of the other more not so standard HTTP request types.
Okay, so what we want, we can just add this. Command C. Command C. And then this one.
Yes. So, just by adding hug.get, we have, in theory, we don't really have to add anything else. And by having it on get means that we can open up a web browser. Because HTML traffic is all get requests. Like we have, so first off, first things first.
Save it.
We need to save the file.
Yeah.
And then, like we saw earlier, we just get rid of the -c, everything after the -c and everything after it, and then it will load up this file as
HTML.
as a little Falcon hosted web server.
Very cool. And that's because you have Falcon installed?
I think, and I don't think we need to have fizzbuzz in there. We do need -f because we're specifying the file.
Oh yeah, okay, right. F, main, we don't need
So we can get
fizzbuzz.
rid of fizzbuzz in 3.
And we'll put it in.
So, serving on port 8000, if we go over to a web browser, new tab, the localhost, :8000. So,
Oops.
yeah, here's to make it larger, it's command plus.
Okay, cool.
Keep going. Perfect.
Okay.
Woo-hoo. Maybe the call you tried to make was not defined, but here's some help to get you going. We have auto-filled out API documentation. That's pretty cool. So it says, hey, I have an endpoint called fizzbuzz on this API, and for its get, we have get example and example number equals 30. Inputs, it expects the variable or the parameter number to be type a whole number. And then expected outputs, it's telling us it's going to return JSON and application JSON. So if we go back into our URL bar there,
Oh, the URL bar.
yeah,
Okay.
just see everything's running as it is.
We just need a number.
Well, we need to go to our fizzbuzz endpoint, so localhost :8000/fizzbuzz. And then the question mark, let's use what we have in our example there, number equals 30.
Oh, and you have to specify the variable.
Yes.
Number equals 30. Okay. Excellent.
So for 30, we get fizzbuzz because it's divisible by 3 and 5. And this is valid JSON because we're just returning either a string or an int, both of which are valid JSON. JSON is not always required to be in a list or a dictionary.
Very cool.
If we wanted to, we could return it as a list or a dictionary. I'm not. I wonder if there's something in the hug. What was the command? So the web interface, like what we did before,
This
except don't include the -c or anything after it. Hug -f made not kind, and we have a
It's right here.
we have a REST API.
Yeah, right here.
So this is our quick start. Let's if we go to the very top of our documentation page here, there's learn, which is going to give us more info about all the things that we just did. So one would be, output format. That seems pretty self-defined. We get output as HTML. Probably as YAML and a couple of other things. Or that hub.default output format, we could define our own output format.
Interesting.
So we have a fizzbuzz. Who wants to try adding another function, adding another API endpoint to our API? Yeah, go ahead. So we just create another function. Let's create a function that has a default argument in it. Whatever you want it to be. Or what? Any ideas from the group? So we can leave fizzbuzz alone and define a new function.
Maybe the easier one, which is food bar, which is it's even, it's food on the bar.
Well, let's do something a little more complex.
Okay.
So we have fizzbuzz. What if let's try something with a list.
You can generate random numbers and then do something like say how many unique values there are. I don't know.
Oh, what if
Or the list, or usually.
what if we return a list of n number of random numbers?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So we can have we'll have a random number list generator. So for our if name equals main on there, because typically that's always the last thing in the file. So let's create a function that takes in an integer with the default value. Whatever you want to call it.
Numero. I mean, I don't know. No?
We could be really boring about it. So the function name comes before the parentheses
Okay.
when defining a function. So we just call it a random list. Very boring, but straightforward. And then in Python, let's just have number again as a variable name. And so we'll use number.
Number. And in the num.
Oh no. In Python, what comes before the parentheses is our function name, and everything inside the parentheses are our function parameters. So let's actually get rid of our terminal. So one of the nice things about is just a command tilde
Tilde.
on the keyboard. No, not command. It's control tilde.
Tilde.
There we go.
Okay.
So if you look at the one up top,
Oh, okay.
no matter how skilled you are, it's
Sort of newbie over here, so sorry.
We cater to everyone. No matter what your skill level is, you always benefit by looking at previous code that you've written as a resource. So just like we have up top, we know that we want to take in a number. So we'll do hug.types.number. And then even with function annotations, we can still give it default values. So right after dot number, before the close parentheses, do equals 5. So that is the Python 3 way to have a parameter of an annotation and a default value.
This isn't specific. You're saying it's specific to Hug, though, right? Is that
Well, Hug, the only thing that Hug specific is that Hug the types dot number.
so in Python 3, if I just did types dot number, it would know the.
Oh no, not so in Python, it really doesn't care what you put there.
Right.
You can put two ways that are that I see people doing it that are useful is hug and or a number colon in this case int and then int equals 5.
Gotcha.
Or hug or a number and then a string that says number of random numbers to return.
Gotcha. Cool.
So you can either treat it as this is the type, or I'm going to describe what this parameter does.
Okay, gotcha.
It takes the role of the older style at brand name parameter description in the document. It just looks that much better.
Yeah,
at
that's great.
brands. Yeah, so there's default. So we can return. Oh, first things first. We need to import random up top. And I think it actually would be from random import rand int.
Import rand int.
Yeah. R-A-N-D-I. Yeah, just the first one there on the island. Perfect. So we can use a list comprehension for this. So for our return line, the syntax for a list comprehension is we start with an empty list, which is square brackets
Square brackets. Okay, so
on our on our return line.
on a return line. Yeah.
So by itself, that is an empty list, but we type things inside of it to turn into a list comprehension. So for to get a list comprehension with random numbers, we can do rand int. And actually, let's add it. I have a better. Oh no, let's keep that. But instead of giving number equals 5, let's actually do max.
Just write the word
yeah,
max
so,
out.
yeah, so we can get rid of equals. We can get rid of the equals 5. So that is going to be required. They are required to give us something. Let's add a new parameter. So comma, and our next another parameter name would be max num.
Does that matter or?
It doesn't matter. With Python, unless you have someone who's completely unreasonable, no one cares if you use lower snake case or camel case, as long as you're consistent throughout your file.
Okay.
So here are our max num. Let's actually do hug.types.number again as our function annotation, and we'll give that one a default value.
So do another.
Yeah. So so our max num.
Okay. Okay.
We also need to give that a function annotation so that Hug knows what to do with it. After max num.
After max.
Yeah, so max num colon.
And will Hug actively complain if you don't give it a type?
I think it was. I don't know.
I mean, it'd be
Try
good.
it.
It'd be kind of.
We can try it. So we'll see.
Yay,
Let's
nay.
get this working, and let's be the one to give. We'll give that a default value. So
Equals 5.
yeah, let's do equals 5.
Okay.
Okay, so
Colon.
so rand int, I think it takes 2, so it takes a min. Let's say that our min is 0, and so rand on our return line. So rand int is a function. So we add parentheses.
Within the
Yes. And rand int takes 2. Takes a range min and a range max. So range min or range is the thing in Python, but our first parameter is 0,
oh.
and then our second one is max num plus 1.
Plus 1.
Well, no, so it's max num
Okay.
plus 1. Because I think like range is non-inclusive.
Yeah.
And so that's the first part.
Mm-hmm.
The next part, still inside of our list comprehension there, still inside the brackets, is 4 underscore in range number. Spaces around the underscore.
Spaces.
Around the underscore. So underscore is this isn't only in Python. It's a common practice to say if we don't care about this variable, we're just going to use an underscore for it. And all we're doing right here is saying we're just going to create a random integer n number of times, and we're just doing that by saying we're going to do this for each time in a range.
Okay.
So 4 underscore in, and then range number, or range parentheses number, and then a space after n.
Space after n. Oh, okay. In range.
Yeah. So, there we go, and then get rid of the s on number. There's a parameter. So that should work. If we want to test it before adding it to an API, what might we do?
Running the command line.
Yeah, so we can add hub.cli to it.
So at the bottom.
So yeah, you see how it,
On top here.
or actually, our fizzbuzz is on the CLI, I think. Yeah, so let's take hub.cli from our fizzbuzz and copy that and put it above our random list. Yeah, and then on the bottom we also need to do random list.interface.cli. So in our if name equals main, you can just copy our fizzbuzz line there and then replace fizzbuzz with random list.
So
That line there.
I'm replacing this with the random list.
Yes. So we can save that file. And then control tilde to bring our command line back up. So command C to get out of that, and then up arrow until we get that -c command back. There we go. So
This would be
so we can get rid of fizzbuzz and put import list, or not import list, random list. And if we click enter, it's going to complain that we didn't give it a number.
so. Let's say
So yeah, so there's our default value. We can run that again and give max num 100. Or so that's random list, and it'll give us 100 things up to and including.
Oh, okay.
Oh no! Hey, rand range is inclusive of the top number, so we can actually get rid of our +1 in our return statement.
Plus one. Where are you?
So the return line just that max num +1, just get rid of the +1.
I'm lost now.
Turned out that, like, there's
Oh.
rand int, and then there's the rand range, and takes the third argument, which is you're just going, and the third argument is how many you want.
Okay.
So that's
This is nice.
I'm glad we did this comprehension because it's pretty soft.
If the standard library provides it, I don't always remember things. But if the standard library provides it, do it. But I think if you don't use list comprehensions on a regular basis, you sometimes forget that they're there. They're very useful. So let's pull up our line again and do random. Let's do random list 5. But we also want to give it a max num of 100.
Okay.
So backspace a bit. So after a 5, add a space, and then put max num because that's how we're specifying what parameter the value is supposed to go with. So then we give it 100. And click enter there, and we should have a list of 5 things.
Ooh.
Hmm.
So what happened there?
I don't. Either we got really unlucky and it's just completely improbabilistic, or I have absolutely no idea. So let's figure out what's going
You
on.
have 5 max num 100. I don't think you need max num. Just the two. They're just the inputs in order.
So I don't need the max number?
So you don't need. Oh yeah, I guess so you don't need a max number. So just 5 and then 100.
No.
Hmm.
Do you need the number in front of 5 at all? You said you did. Can we try that?
What if we keep 5 there, and then we do hyphen max num and then give it a value? And give it Okay, there we go. Yay. I like
Okay.
it when libraries use standard coding conventions. So yeah, so for our between random list and 5, we can do hyphen number or actually get rid of the 5.
Mhm.
And let's actually put hyphen number after the 100,
Hyphen,
and it should
hyphen,
still work.
max. Oh,
Yeah, so after the 100, yeah, all the way at the end of the line. No, we can keep that in there for purposes of demonstrating out of order. So after the 100, do hyphen number and 5 space. There we go. Yay, proper command. Yeah, that's nice.
good. Wow. Next.
So who wants to add it into our REST API? One of you two over there.
No.
I'll give you an amazing hint. We've already done it. All you need to do is add one line to our code.
I did it. I can't do anything. I don't know how to type. So I listen very well.
I mean, you.
Do it.
Someone else. It really, you've already done the hard part. It really is just adding one line to it. Who can figure it out?
Okay, how do I?
Or,
Yeah, so,
is that it? Do I add parentheses? Okay.
Yeah. And we're not done just yet. So it is one line. Save the file, and we'll load up our REST API again. Command S.
Oh, Command S, not Control S.
Yeah, so then back down in our terminal, we get rid of everything except for hug-f main.py to load up our REST API again. Question? And then we can swipe back over to our web browser. Our other tab there. And instead of using fizzbuzz, we have random list. Yep. So so we just need to provide the parameters to it. And you'll notice that our random list got added to our documentation there. And let's actually go, let's scroll down to see what our inputs are on this page. So we have number, type, a whole number, max num, and it lets us know that it has a default value of 5. So all we would need to do is add URL parameter number equals 5.
How do I do that?
Question.
So yeah, it starts with a question mark, and then number equals 5. Let's see what's going on.
Oh, you need another one, right? You need dash max number.
No, because that has a default value. Is random? Is the L in random list capitalized in the URL there? Can't quite see. It's exactly what it has in here. So
Okay.
it is case sensitive.
Because it passes that.
Yeah,
parameter to the Python marker.
Yeah, it's exactly as is.
I see. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so we created a function, we tested it on our command line, and then with one line of code, we added it to our REST API.
So would you need to actually add the parameter for see a question mark number equals 5 is the next thing you need to do? Is it not? It's not dash dash.
It's not dash dash. So without a default value, it just interprets it. The way that we add multiple parameters in a URL is we add a comma between them. So we'd have number equals 5, and then max num equals 100, just separated by a comma. Or no, not a comma, what I'm thinking. It's an ampersand. And I worked with that today. Why would I get that confused? So there we go.
Okay, so suppose we were getting really, really ambitious and we had already pre-trained some kind of image classification model or something that would tell us if the image was a tomato or not a tomato. How would we go from just vaguely abstractly inputting like our image classification model and then putting a hug around it?
Well, other than implementing it here, yeah.
It's also a function that just takes the image.
So I think the best place to find that is going to be in type annotation. Yeah, they're using Marshmallow underneath for all of that. Let's see, built-in hug types: number, float number, decimal, UUID, text, multiple, Boolean, smart Boolean, delimited list, one of, mapping, multi, in range, less than, greater than, length, shorter than, longer than, cut off. This is probably what you would have to do.
Turn it into a binary.
Yeah, it would have. My guess is that the parameters would read in extra data up top. We can dig through the documentation, but if you're reading in for something like that, you'd be reading in an image as a payload. Because it's using Falcon underneath, I'm sure that you could do import Falcon, get the payload. Yeah, we'd have to get the Falcon documents up here. But because it's nice to know that it's using Falcon underneath the hood, because that's how you'd have to get it out. Let's see something. Oh, so we've only been using get. Let's try a put and delete, get put and delete for a single, or I guess a handful of functions. Let's see exactly how we can do that, because that's not going to be in the getting started. Using a router as a decorator. So get home, def root, that's how we get it there. Let's see. I'm looking for it's a hug.delete. Hmm. Well,
Oh, dash U.
well, that might take a little longer. I'm wondering, for the sake of just getting something up and running. Let's see. So, what if we have let's have 3 different endpoints, and just kind of skimming the documentation, it's not going to be as simple as just doing put, post, delete, but we can do get, just 3 different endpoints with get, and be able to work with a list of numbers. So so let's say we have this global list of numbers, and we have a function called putNum. We can have a function called getNum, or let's just leave it at that. So let's say that this takes number that's going to be, actually, we can do strings for the purpose of just getting a different type in there. So text, and do global strings. And the functional programmers who are going to be watching this are going to be fuming because this is side effects and all of that. But let's just say strings.append. Let's change it from none. So we have a list of strings, and this function just takes in strings and will return strings just to show that it was added. And then for just get string, it takes nothing, and it will just return strings. And I'm actually kind of interested, I'm not exactly sure what it does about doc strings. String to string list. Let's say get string list. So 2 functions that work with a list of strings that stays over multiple calls. and just to make it available to our API, and for the sake of just getting it running, let's just have get on both of these different endpoints. Reloading due to file change. If you anytime that it detects that a file has changed in the project that it's being loaded from, it will auto reboot the server, which is makes our life a little bit easier. So I'm just going to pull up the root again so we can see our updated documentation. So again, we have fizzbuzz, random list, we have put string and get string, and yeah, so it doesn't read documentation. I'm sure there's some that would go in the in our @hug.get docstring equals description of what this function does. But we have put string and get string, so we can do put string, and the string, random string. Oh, I don't remember what the URL encoding for a space is. All right, I'm just going to do underscore at %20.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. I wonder if it auto decodes it. Let's see. It auto decodes it. So we added in a string. Let's add in another string. Someone else. String to add in. It's just a string. Python. Ooh, interesting.
Oh, it's self-adding.
It
So if you do
is.
Python again, it will do.
So reload adds it.
Yeah.
Oh, we did that before. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's just doing it once, but I guess it went to the page twice or something.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's putting things, and just for the sake of checking our other one, which is just going to return things. So we don't give it anything, and it just returns our list of strings as is. How might we add another function that removes a given string from our string list?
Added hug.get, define it, and then instead of append, you can do well, I guess you,
No, this is more Python syntax, but
yeah. I can't remember what
so again we can do our. I can copy this down because it's text. Or wrong one. So we do global strings because we're going to change it, and strings dots. We want to go through here. Anyone see anyone that might work? Okay, so we can give it string.
Now, will that remove all the strings or just one string?
I think it will remove all occurrences.
Okay.
That, or it will only remove the first occurrence. It's actually remove first occurrence of a value. Raises value error if none is found. So I'm actually wondering how Hug handles Python errors. That could be interesting. So up top, we'll do our rem string, and we'll give it string equals Python, and we have 5 Pythons in there. Server error occurred. That's how it handles it. List I remove x not in list. Interesting. Because it very clearly was in the list. So let's see what string gives us. Like print string, and then we'll also print string in strings. Let's run this again. So let's also print out what strings is at that point. Oh, it reloaded the server, so it cleared out strings.
That's it.
That's what's going on. But oh, that's interesting. So it just says if it gets an exception anywhere in there, it just says, hey, 500 internal server error. So let's actually go back. So actually, let's go here. So our get string, we have an empty list. So we're going to reload this. It's going to add in Python twice, and then for the instead of put string, let's do our rem string. Run it once. Oh, I was wondering what was going on there. Yes. Whoopsie. There we go. So one Python, and then it should also error here because it couldn't find in the list.
So how would you use Hug to wrap it into like a UI, right? Since you're making a web app, so is it always just communicating through URL?
So to integrate into a UI, if it's written in Python, then you would just use the local and import it like you would any other Python library, Python file. But when you turn it into this kind of REST API, your service would treat it just like it would any other web server. So yeah, to get information in and out of a UI, you just make your request call, your AJAX request, whatever your language uses.
Okay, cool. But that will still work through Hug as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, Hug just turns it into a REST server. So the doc string didn't work. I'm wondering, I wonder if it's in the quick start, just to add an endpoint description. So exposing it as a Hug API, just examples. I wonder if, so get no, that's not going to give me that. I'm not sure where it's going to be in basic, but it had example in there. I wonder if it'd still be back in routing. Oh. So here's something. This probably would be a more real world example. So what we did for this strings one, we just created 3 different endpoints that all have gets. But the first thing in each of these is we can give it a separate endpoint. So this Hug, if nothing is given, it just uses the function name. But we can explicitly call an endpoint. So we can assign it to an endpoint. And what that allows us to do is to do something more like this. So hug.put. So our put string is going to be our put endpoint on it's going to be our put on our string endpoint. Our get string is going to be get on endpoint string. And then our remove string can be our delete on endpoint string. And I'll actually remove these here. So that will reload, and go back to our start page here with our documentation. Instead of having all the different things, we now just have a single endpoint string that has a put method, a get method, and a delete method on it. And we can see our get doesn't take anything, our put takes in data, and our delete takes in, or well, not data, but URL parameters. So in order,
Change the URL you write.
yeah, so all we did was say, instead of just using the default name of the function that our methods are decorating, we're going to explicitly say assign it, which means that we still have to create different function names for all of our different functions in the file, but we can then assign them to the different types of requests that endpoint can get. So in order to demo that, or to test that, because a web browser only takes GET requests, I have a program called Insomnia REST API, ha 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 ha. And you can see we use this for our Pokemon Flask mob. So I'll just create a new workspace called Hug. And all we're going to do in here is here, this is going to be our string get, and we're going to point that to HTTP localhost on 8,000 strings, I think. Yeah, no, just string. And if we send that, it's currently empty. So yay, that works. We'll create a new put request. And just call this string again. Let's go ahead and copy this over. And we're going to add our parameter string equals Python. We'll send it, and we've added Python into our list again. So going over to get, resend it, we get our list that has Python in it. For the sake of running it again, let's add in happy birthday again. %20. Okay.
Not logical.
Nothing on the web is logical. Send it, and we've got a happy birthday. One more, which is our delete request. I'm going to create that. I'll pull over the URL one more time. And this time we're going to remove happy birthday from our list. There we go. So same endpoint, just different HTTP request types. And we did that by explicitly defining what our endpoint is. This is very Flask right here. If not familiar with Flask, go check out our video archive. We spent 2 months working on a Flask more or less fully fledged Flask application.
So let's say we're this. Why would you use this instead of Flask? What situations would this be better instead of Flask?
So Flask is great when you're building a large application. Personally, I would use Hug in situations like this for smaller things. I actually have something in mind that I would use this for, but it only has 5 endpoints to it. Bye, see you guys. But the really nice thing about Hug is that you get that automatic documentation and type validation. I'm just finishing up a contract right now where I'm building a Flask backend or Flask front to an SQL Alchemy database, and I have to do all of my own data validation both in and out. And while I try to make everything as concise as possible, you still have to build all of those validators yourself. And this is just saying, hey, I'm going to give this a function annotation, and it takes care of all of it for you. It it does. You still have to construct everything. Yeah. So I have separate files for all the different endpoints. I'm constructing it. And it's the schema on the way out. You can actually build it based off of what the SQL Alchemy model design is. But the schema, the validation on the way in is not automatic by any stretch of the imagination. Not nearly as automatic as Hug, which is and it uses it using Python 3 function annotations, which just it's so elegant in terms of the little amount of code that you have to add in for things that it takes developers weeks to implement. Yeah, so we're getting close to 9 o'clock, or relatively speaking, it's 8:41. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Completely new to Python and APIs. What would you recommend to get started?
To get started, for learning the Python language, itself, there's a bunch of classes. You can look at Coursera, Udacity. If you just want if you want a single page website that teaches you all of the basics of Python, just the standard language, there's a website called Learn X and Y Minutes that is really great. LearnXandYminutes.com, and it has everything on it. It's great. You want to learn C#, you want to learn Chapel. I have no idea what that is. So yeah, it's really good. And the great thing about it is not only is it in a bunch of different languages, in case English isn't your first language, it teaches you everything in code, and the code compiles. Technically, Python compiles, but not really. So you can copy all of this code right now, put it into a .py file, and it will run. It's all valid code. You can also type all of this into type and or paste these lines into the interactive Python command prompt, and it will run there for you as well. And it's giving you the expected output. This one I pulled up specifically is Python 3. If you're just getting started, Python 3. Yeah, just don't go back to Python 2. It's no longer going to be supported in any way, shape, or form in the next 3 years. So.
What about API?
So Flat. So this is a good one to get started with. It's built on top of Falcon, but Falcon is really designed for building REST APIs. Flask, which we touched on earlier this year. Yeah. The videos are online.
Okay.
Yeah. So
YouTube channel?
yeah. So on YouTube, it's Orlando MLDS. It's the MLDS Machine Learning and Data Science, but I post the Data Science and Orlando Python talks onto the same one. So those are all on there. In fact, the last time we were here for Python, we did mob programming on a website called Code Wars, which is all about write a function that takes in the following input and gives the following output. It's a coding exercise site. And you just say, I'm a beginner, I'm intermediate, I'm an expert, and we'll scale the different things for you. You can look at that video to get some really advanced things, or you can go to the site and start learning there as well. That's one's free. So yeah. But yeah, learn X and Y minutes. If you don't need it to be spoken aloud to you by someone, you just follow along on this. When I first saw this, I learned some new things, and I had been doing Python for 4 years at that point. Yeah. So this is pretty thorough. Yeah. So it was.
So I'll
say this. I know so
Yeah.
little about Python, right? I thought it meant like if you need a hug for how much you use.
Always offering free hugs. But yeah.
I
I
feel
mean,
like I got one.
who doesn't want to get scrolling up? Who doesn't want to get hugged by that thing in ASCII art? That's my phone.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah. So
Sorry.
yeah, that's it. I'll go ahead and put this up in our GitHub page. It's github.com/Orlando Python, all lowercase, no spaces. So I'll get this up here right now, but
You said Orlando Python.
Orlando Python, all lowercase, no space. The Flask application is there that we built. Some other code that we did before then. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop the live stream and get this code up there. Oh, let me just pull that up. So github.com, Orlando Python. Oh yeah, we have the machine learning workshop code is there. But
Thanks a lot.
yeah, we're here every month.
Yeah,
And-
I want to start coming out.
When's the, so when's it gonna be, the one next time? Actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're always the fourth Tuesday of every month. Yeah, a lot of the meetups around here we are the nth day of each month.
How about, what's it looking like for September? The next 2 months out.
It's still gonna be the fourth Tuesday of September.
What,
Oh, we have no idea.
Oh, okay.
No, we have no idea. So we have in Orlando Devs Slack.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, there's the Python channel. Typically I'll take out links if anyone posts an interesting library that I think would be interesting for the group. Either
Is there a way you
pull
can
out like
send me a
that.
link to that so I can get on that?
Yeah, I can get you in. It's an invite and those get you in. It's just to keep recruiters out. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give you my email? Or?
I'll just have you come up and type it after I turn the stream off. So, bye, streaming people. Get to see OBS.